What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Rick Knows Hoops. I'm your host, Tyreek, and I'm here to talk about some trades. Not a lot of trades have been going down, but the trade deadline is, I think, 6 days away, the 23rd of March. So, yeah, let's get into it. There was a trade this morning, though. Trevor Ariza got traded to the Miami Heat for Myers Leonard. Kind of funny how after all that stuff went down, which I'm not really going to speak too much on, he gets traded like not even a week later, but it's good for the Miami Heat because I was just talking in my video last night, how they've been trying to replace the loss of Jay Crowder, and now getting Trevor Ariza, who I don't think he's played this season, or maybe not since the early parts of the season, but that's another solid wing player that, can hit the 3-point shot and still defend at a pretty solid level. He was playing really good in Portland last year before the season obviously shut down, and he didn't go to the bubble with them, but he was playing pretty well, when he got picked up. And my dad, he loves Trevor Ariza. He loves his game a lot because, he can defend with the best of them, even though he's a little older now, but, he can still, provide some solid defense on the wing. So I think that's a good move for the Miami Heat. They're all the way up to fourth in the Eastern Conference now. So that's, a surprise because they were just the 11-12 seed 2 weeks ago. So that just shows you, what a win streak in the Eastern Conference can do. But, good move for them. And yeah, hopefully that starts some trades because everybody loves trade season. The deadline coming up soon. We just want to see some action. But it could be interesting because there could be a lot of trades or there could be none, because I think a lot of teams think, they're good enough to make the play-in at the 10 seed. But I think we're going to find out real soon that, not every team should be thinking that way, but there probably won't be a lot of selling teams. But one of the teams that should be selling is the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets should be selling. And obviously Victor Oladipo is the biggest name on that team right now that's likely should be dealt. He should get dealt because I think he's made it pretty evident that he won't be coming back to Houston. He'll be a free agent this offseason. And he's made it pretty clear that he wants to go to Miami. So, back to the Heat. It's interesting if they're going to try and make a move for him this season because, Miami just made the finals last year. And, the way that they've been playing lately, they're getting back to the way that they were playing basketball in the bubble. Guys haven't been shooting as well, but it looks like, Tyler Herro's starting to get a little more confidence. Hopefully Duncan Robinson can, get out of that slump that he was in for, a big stretch of the season. Hopefully you see those young guys just play better. And, for Miami, it's do we go all in? Because you could argue, if they would have had somebody like Victor Oladipo, they probably could have gave the Lakers, a little more. Even though it went to 6 games, it didn't feel like it was a 6-game series. But, maybe having another guy that can score on the perimeter and, can, support Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic on the perimeter, scoring the ball, creating. You can make the argument that could have helped that team a lot. So I'm interested to see if they just, go ahead and make the move now or wait until the offseason because they will have some cap space. So very interesting because how the way that the Eastern Conference is stacking up with Brooklyn, Philly, teams like that. It's going to be interesting to see if Miami, Pat Riley decides to make that move or not. And then also on the Houston Rockets, PJ Tucker. They've already made it clear that they're going to find, basically they're parting ways with PJ Tucker. They made that clear, I think, right before the All-Star break. They said, yeah, we're not, we're going to, do our best to find a trade partner. If not, probably a buyout situation. A lot of teams could use a PJ Tucker. Really any team in the NBA that's competing could use the PJ Tucker. Obviously, I think Brooklyn is probably the biggest, the best suitor for him. Also, Philly, I think Philly would be a really good spot for PJ Tucker. Obviously, the Lakers, even the Lakers could use a PJ Tucker. Any team that's competing could use a PJ Tucker. I think he would be really good in a place like Portland or Denver, places like that. So, I think a lot of, different spots are going to be throwing, some value for PJ Tucker. So it's going to be interesting to see where he would go. It's weird to say that everybody would fit in Brooklyn, but they need defensive play. They just need guys that are, hard-nosed defenders. And I think PJ Tucker would fit right in Brooklyn. And, he's very interchangeable too. I think he would just, slide right into that, forward spot, can play small ball, 4 or 5, whatever you need him to play. So, a lot of teams are going to be looking for PJ Tucker, so that's going to be interesting. And we mentioned OKC making a trade earlier, so they got some more players on that roster that could maybe get dealt. And I know Al Horford has that huge contract, but I think we found that those big contracts are not impossible to move. And Al Horford's been pretty good this season, so it wouldn't be like out of the realm of possibility that a team would throw maybe a first-round pick for Al Horford or maybe some young assets. I mean, it's not really out of the realm of possibility. It always seems like he would be a perfect fit in Boston. I think him leaving has really just left that void in the middle of the Celtics defense. And, just that solid player. Like, you could always rely on Al Horford to, produce, just his solid stat lines every game and make a big impact on the defensive end. So maybe, Boston, I don't know what their caps. I know they have that big trade exception, but I don't really know what their, full cap situation is looking like. But that trade exception might come in handy. But, I don't know, it's going to be hard to move Al Horford's contract at the same time, though, because I don't know if a lot of teams, not only have that money to match, but, where would he fit in, teams that are trying to contend. Very, very interesting there. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Presti's able to finesse another first-round pick. And also, let's talk about George Hill, because George Hill's a, veteran point guard, very solid guy. I could see a team like the Clippers really looking to get that, just somebody that can, manage the floor, better than what they have right now. That's no disrespect to Patrick Beverly. I love Patrick Beverly. He's, one of the best defenders at the point guard position, one of the best entertainers, I think, because he's always, doing his antics and stuff. And Reggie Jackson's cool. He's cool. But, we saw in the playoffs last year, and I think we're seeing it now. They just struggle at times just really to get, basic sets. They really struggle. And, they've been relying on Kawhi and Paul George to create a lot. So it'd be good for them just to have somebody that can manage the floor, a good floor general. I think guys like George Hill would be perfect. Also, Ricky Rubio. Ricky Rubio is another guy, and they have the salaries to match his $17 million contract. So I think Ricky Rubio would be a great addition to that Clipper team. I think Luke Kennard's making $16 million or something like that. They could slide that in, perfectly. I think that would be a perfect fit. Also, maybe a lesser name, but somebody else that's just a pretty solid floor general. Elfrid Payton. I think he's pretty much the odd man out in New York because they just picked up Derrick Rose. Emmanuel Quickley's been so good. Elfrid Payton would probably be last resort kind of situation, but still a very solid floor general that you can, rely on just to, keep your team kind of stable, make sure everybody's in their spots. But I definitely think the Clippers are going to make a move. And, that brings me to the Spurs. The Spurs, very interesting because they are in the playoffs. They've been a very solid team all season long. But, we know LaMarcus Aldridge is going to get traded or at least bought out, one or the other. And, I think he's another player that's kind of tough to gauge, very tough to gauge because, I don't know if, I just don't know where he fits. Because, he's a vet. He probably wants to go to a contender. He probably wants to go to a contending team. Because I was thinking, the Hornets would be perfect. The Hornets would be perfect for LaMarcus Aldridge. But he's a vet. Has never made a deep playoff run. I think besides maybe one or two maybe a conference finals with the Spurs, but Kawhi got hurt. But he's never tasted that championship glory. He probably wants to go to a contending team. So, I always thought the LA teams, the two LA teams, probably be perfect for him. I don't think Boston's really a good fit. Brooklyn, I don't really think that's a good fit either. I mean, they just got Blake Griffin, so we still have to see how that works out. I would think the LA teams, but at the same time, I don't know because, the Lakers, they just got Marc Gasol in the offseason, but he hasn't played as well as they might have wanted him to. But then again, he's a playoff type of player at this age. I don't know. I don't know where LaMarcus Aldridge really fits, but I could see one of the LA teams, if he gets bought out, maybe just, saying, we don't got nothing to lose. We might as well just pick him up, see what happens. And, also with the Spurs, I don't think DeMar DeRozan is going to get dealt. But it's very interesting at the same time because he will be a free agent this offseason. And I don't know if the Spurs are going to bring him back. So, Pop, who knows, Pop might get something for him. Or, they might just ride the rest of the season out, try and make the playoff push. Also, Rudy Gay. You know, they decide to sell Rudy Gay, Patty Mills, or some guys that might be some commodities at the trade deadline. And they could probably get some value for them. I think Rudy Gay would fit well on a lot of teams. And, of course, Patty Mills coming off the bench as a scorer would be great for any team that's, you know, looking to make a, you know, finals push. You know, he would really fit in anywhere. And, you know, another team that probably should be selling is like the Orlando Magic, even though they seem to never want to sell for some reason. But they've always been stuck in that, you know, 7-8 seam realm this season. A lot of injuries have hindered them. So, you know, it's tough to see, you know, Marco Fultz and John Isaac not play. But, you know, it's the reality. And Aaron Gordon's been in trade talks for what seems like the past, like, 5 years. And, you know, Terrence Ross is another name that's been kind of floating around. And then Nick Vucevic, even though he's very content in Orlando, they said they're not going to trade him. His value is probably never going to be higher than it is right now. His value is probably never going to be as high as it is right now. He's a very, very, very talented big man. And I think he can make an impact on, you know, a lot of teams. Like, a lot of teams could use a Nick Vucevic right now. You know, given, like, you know, matching the salaries and stuff, because he is making, I think, $26 million. But, you know, a contending team, if they, you know, they feel like they're a piece away, they can go out and get a Nick Vucevic. And even like Aaron Gordon can fit in on a lot of teams too. Maybe a lesser team, but the Timberwolves would be picture perfect for Aaron Gordon. Picture perfect. And Terrence Ross, he has Philly written all over him. I don't know why. He just has Philly written all over him. So if the 76ers can go out, get the Terrence Ross, that would be big for them. But, you know, Nick Vucevic, I don't know where, but Orlando, you're not going to get higher value than right now for Nick Vucevic. So, you know, I would, if I was them, they're saying all the right things. You know, we're not trading him. A bunch of teams say that, then they end up trading their star player. But, you know, the two-time All-Star, I would love to see him on a playoff team, like a certified playoff team, not one of those teams that are barely getting in, a certified playoff team. And I would like to see, you know, just him work in the playoffs because, you know, he's a name that, you know, a lot of people don't know about. So, you know, if you're the Magic, I've been preaching this, you know, for as long as I can remember. Sell, blow it up, get assets, just get some assets, man. Get some assets for those players, man, and, you know, start the rebuild the right way. Started the right way. And lastly, I want to talk about like Andre Drummond and the Cavs, basically, you know, because they got some players that could be moved. Kevin Love, I don't know if anybody will trade for Kevin Love, but he's back on the court now after only playing like 2 games early on in the season or something like that. JaVale McGee's another guy that could get moved. You know, teams like maybe the Miami Heat could look for him, the Boston Celtics, you know, teams that just need solid big man depth. But the main name is, you know, Drummond. Drummond's the main name. And I think the Pistons showed us that no contract's too big to get bought out. And I think Drummond's making like $28 million right now. I'm pretty sure gonna be a free agent. And you saw last season, I think it was last season, the Cavs did not trade really anything to get Drummond. I think they traded like Brandon Knight, a second round pick, and I forgot who else. But they did not trade anything to get Andre Drummond. And honestly, his value is probably even lower now. Like, I don't think a lot of teams are gonna want to, you know, not gonna get a lot for Andre Drummond right now. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he does get bought out, because a lot of teams will be lining up to get Drummond. Drummond's one of the best rebounders in NBA history. He's really one of the best rebounders in NBA history. He is questionable at times, like with his decision making. I think he's shooting like less than 50% at the rim as a big man. But that's because a lot of times he gets offensive rebounds and he just kind of puts something back up and it's some BS. But, you know, he would make a lot of teams like a lot better having that big man that can really dominate the boards like that. And if they can just, you know, keep his decision making contained, he could really be a valuable asset. You know, I think ideally the Nets and the Lakers are probably like, if they could get a Drummond, it would be perfect. Possibly the Boston Celtics. I mean, there's a lot of teams, like even like maybe the Clippers. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that could really use Andre Drummond right now. And, you know, if they can just keep him contained, even like the Hornets, because they play a lot of Bismack Biyombo, a lot of Cody Zeller when he's healthy. They could just have somebody that's stable at the center position. You know, the Hornets might be an interesting team heading into the postseason because 2 games over 500 right now. I might have to do a whole Hornets video because I love that team. Gordon Hayward's been so underappreciated. But, yeah, Drummond, that's something to keep an eye out. Probably not gonna be a trade, probably a buyout. And the buyout's a whole nother that's a whole nother aspect. It's sometimes more impactful than the trade deadline itself. So Andre Drummond's probably a big name that could get bought out. We already saw Blake Griffin get bought out, go to the Nets. Maybe potentially a PJ Tucker gets bought out if nobody throws, a trade package. There's some guys that could get bought out. Already mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge probably get bought out. I mean, there's a lot of guys, and I'll probably miss some players that are on the trading block, but those are just the main names that came to mind. And like I said earlier, it's going to be interesting to see which teams are actually going to sell, because I think a lot of teams believe that they're good enough to make the 10th seed and be in that play-in tournament. So, we might not have a very active trade deadline, and we might, have a lot of trades going on. We already saw one earlier today, the Trevor Ariza move. Very solid move for the Heat. We'll see what else gets thrown around. Also, the other day, Hami Diallo got moved for Svi Mykhailiuk. So OKC making a couple trades, but that's not really one that's going to impact the playoffs at all. So, we're going to see which teams decide to make moves. Yeah, hopefully we get some chaos at the deadline, man. Those are the best times, and if a big trade happens, best believe I'm going to be one of the first people to talk about it. Best believe that. But yeah, y'all, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. It's a little longer video, but hey, it's trade season, man. Trade season. I'm going to be back next time, though, y'all. Peace.